Well, our next guest is joining us from a decidedly chillier part of Victoria. Political consultant Jim Middleton is live for us today from Falls Creek. And Jim, you're certainly looking the part. Good to see you. I know in between ski runs you've been paying close attention to the plight of the Biloela family. We need to be clear about this, don't we? The government's decision today to relocate them to Perth, it doesn't actually bring them any closer to returning to their home in Queensland. The family is still in a community detention program in Perth. But as the Minister, Alex Hawke, told Kieran Gilbert earlier in this program, the government does fear that a flood of boats would follow if this family was given any special exemptions. Is he right?
Good afternoon to you, Ash. Well, look, there seem to be very divided opinions on this as from what I've heard over recent times. The idea that the special circumstances of this one family would lead to the entire people smuggling operations gearing up again doesn't seem to fit with a lot of professional advice as far as that's concerned. Also, there is the question of whether or not they would indeed be safe if they went back to Sri Lanka. There are very much divided opinions on that as well. I think what we can say out of this, though, is that Australians, by and large, don't want to know about what goes on as far as this, or what has been going on as far as this family is concerned. But once it's forced upon them, and that very graphic picture that emerged last week of the child is clearly suffering, then it does become an issue for the government on the question of humanitarian grounds and also on the question of cost. I think we can say out of what has been announced by Alex Hawke this morning is that they may well be in Perth for quite a while. I don't think they'll be going back to Christmas Island. Whether they eventually get to Biloela is another question. In the interview with Kieran Gilbert just a few moments ago, it did seem to me that the minister was leaving himself just a little bit of wiggle room as far as this is concerned. And clearly, too, among the coalition, now that these graphic pictures emerged, there is concern, certainly in some urban electorates, as well as in the electorate around Biloela as well, about the fate of these people, this family. So whether or not they are eventually removed back to Sri Lanka, I don't think that in the immediate term they'll be going back to Christmas Island. They may well be in Perth for quite a while, and they may indeed still get to Biloela.
I think we'll be hearing a bit more about this in question time this afternoon. Labor and the Greens pretty keen to pursue a few angles on this story. Jim, just moving on for now, how do you think the Prime Minister's handling himself on the world stage? He's probably a bit out of practice with meetings in recent times being held over Zoom. But look, we're all pretty keen to see more details of this British-Australian free trade deal, which will be happening a bit later this afternoon.
Look, what we know about this free trade deal is that Boris Johnson needs it. He has to show something as a consequence of Brexit, that leaving the EU is not something which is going to cost Britain a great deal. So he needs it. Scott Morrison wants it. So something will emerge. But an in-principle announcement of support for the free trade deal does not necessarily mean that this is the be-all and end-all. There's still, it would appear, much to be done. And in particular on the question of agriculture, which is always a sticking point in trade deals that Australia does with other nations. Australia wants tariff-free access to the British markets immediately, and the British seem to be offering 15 years, which is a very, very, very imperceptible glide path as far as this is concerned. In general terms, free trade deals, bilateral agreements don't really amount to a great hill of beans. Look, it's not that long ago that we were talking loudly and proudly about the free trade agreement with China. Look where that's ended up. Apart from iron ore, not very well indeed. The big breakthroughs as far as Australia is concerned have been multilateral. That is when agriculture was introduced into the tariff discussions back in the 1980s, and then with the breakthroughs on tariff in the Asia Pacific with APEC as well. They're much more important than these free trade deals. Leaders like them. They get a bit of a pat on the back and a bit of publicity for a little while, but in the end, they don't matter a huge amount. But It matters in terms of public projection for the British audience, for Boris Johnson. He needs it. Scott Morrison wants it. So there will be an announcement of some kind this afternoon, obviously. But how far and how much of an improvement and benefit to Australian trade it is, not quite so sure that it matters a great deal.
Yeah, and full coverage of that announcement coming up a bit later today on Sky News with our political editor, Andrew Cornell, following the Prime Minister on that tour. Jim Middleton, we'll let you get back to hitting the slopes. Appreciate you joining us. We're all very jealous. Looks gorgeous there.
Thank you very much. I've been enjoying it.